Time for sound design. In this video, I'm gonna sample some Japanese records again. On my recent trip to Tokyo, I went to a couple of different record stores. I made 2 videos before this about Face Records in Shibuya, in Tokyo. This time, I'm gonna talk about the records that I picked up in Ginza Records and Audio in Tokyo as well. And these are all 7-inch records. I was listening to these records and I found on one of them a really good intro that I think is perfect for sampling. So it's this record from Kawai Onna from 1979. It's a pop record. It's a single, so it has 2 tracks, one on each side. And on side B, the intro of the song is quite nice. And instead of just looping that intro and put a beat underneath it, which can be cool at times as well, I want to chop up this sample and see if I can create somewhat of a new melody from this existing loop. So I'll do a little bit more advanced chopping of a sample and put some drums underneath it to kind of make it work with that as well. So let's listen to this song and record it into Ableton. So it's really this first part of the sample that I think is interesting. The first 2 kind of more stabby notes is nice, but what I would like to focus on is this part. And also those little parts. So I'm thinking to chop those out and maybe repeat a few parts and in that way trying to create a new melody. So first thing is to copy the track to keep the original. And now I'm going into first put start point here and maybe map it to 2 bars. So I think this is 2 bars. Let's hear it. Let's put the warp mode on complex. Maybe crop this as well to 2 bars. So now it's already much more clear that it is about this part here. So I changed the warp markers to make it align to the grid. This is the part of the sample that's quite clean. There's not a lot of different instruments, and that's why it's perfect for chopping and for using it in a beat so that there's not too much different things going on. Let's zoom in to 2 bars. Take this part out and also this part. Again, copy it to a new track. I have to adjust the markers a little bit so that it doesn't start too early. Maybe leave this sample but copy it to the beginning and only use the first part again. So maybe if you just copy the first note a few times and do that for the second part of the sample as well. So the second part of the sample, or the second bar, is the different part of the sample. That's why it's higher. And now you can already hear some kind of new melody. It's just that at the end of every sample, there's a little start of the next part of the sample. So you hear this kind of sound. And I think we can get rid of that by adding a little fade. So if we zoom in again, it's this sound. So if you just select right mouse click, create fade out, or option command F. Now it's gone. Let's copy this and also do it for the second bar. Option command F, if you select a part of a clip, and now it should be gone. Let's add a drum beat to see how this works with the drums. If it's still too much, if you hear it still too much, or if it's okay. Let's pick a drum kit, maybe the Coma kit. Let's start with a very basic pattern, kick snare only. You can still hear a little bit of the sample. Let's make it a bit shorter. Even though there's not a lot of low end in the sample, I'm still gonna cut it everything below 100 Hertz because there's some rumble from the turntable perhaps. Okay, so now that we have a basic kick snare pattern and we have the sample melody, let's make the drums fit a bit more with the sample. So we definitely want to have another kick maybe here that falls together with the sample, even though the sample doesn't exactly. Let's try it, let's see. So maybe we want this kick to be a bit later, 30 seconds later. So the sample is exactly a 30-second after here. So then the kick as well. And then also again for the same for bar 2. And then we want some hi-hats in there as well. And to make the sample a bit different as well from the record, I'm gonna pitch the entire sample an octave down. Let's see how that sounds. I will first make a copy of this and then consolidate it into one file. So if you do right mouse click or Command J, you consolidate it into one file. And now if we pitch it an octave down, and especially if you now listen back to the original, having it chopped up and having it one octave down makes it quite different. So the original sounded like this. And now chopped up and one octave down and some drums underneath it, you get this. So this chopped up sample pitch down could be the basis of a new track. We have the drums, we have this. Of course, we need to add a bass. We can add other melodic elements. We can add more percussion. But when you use a sample like this, which is in the end still kind of a loop instead of an instrument, at some point you'll run into the problem that it becomes too repetitive and you want to kind of take away the sample, but then the track might kind of fall flat. So you want to keep the sample, but you want still a little bit more variation, or maybe you want less of the sample, but still keep the feeling of the sample. For that, what I would do is make another copy of this sample and basically mute parts. So maybe we're going to mute most of the sample for this variation part, and then you will get this. And that's a little too sparse, so let's add a delay that we then only enable for this part. And let's filter the output a bit, or quite a lot, and also change the feedback time. So now we'll have this. So this could be a variation part to the main part of the sample. So maybe you want to crank up the delay even more. And then just in comparison to the original pitched melody. And this part you can still use in the track, or maybe this could be an intro, but I kind of like the pitch down part. It also makes it more distinct from the sample. So yeah, that's the part I would use. So yeah, that's it for this video. This is the record I used. I will link it down in the description. I will also link to the record store that I visited. If you're into chopping samples and you have different techniques or tips and tricks, how to do it, how to also create variation. If you have one loop, how to create a second variation. Now I use the trick with the delay and muting parts. But if you have other tips and tricks, let me know down in the comments. As always, keep making music. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.